Assalamu alaikum. Dear student, hope you are doing well. Today I am going to conduct a class for the students of 9-10, Chapter 4, Bioenergetics. This is the last part of this chapter discussion, and today's topic is cellular respiration. Today we will discuss about anaerobic respiration, difference between the respiration and the photosynthesis, difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, factors of respiration, importance of respiration, and exercise, and some answer of those exercises. First, what is anaerobic respiration or fermentation? It is a process in which energy can be released from glucose even though oxygen is not available. During this stage, the pyruvic acid produced by glycolysis accepts two hydrogen from NADH and changes to some other end product. In yeast cells, the end product are ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. In certain bacteria and in muscles, the pyruvic acid changes to lactic acid. So, this is the overall process. Glucose glycolysis. This step is the same as the aerobic respiration. And after that, when pyruvate have to oxidize and there is no oxygen, then it starts fermentation, lactate in the absence of oxygen, and that is the system oxygen present, and it makes ATP, and without oxygen or in the absence of oxygen, it's make lactate. So now we will know details about the fermentation. Releases energy from glucose without the presence of oxygen. There are two types of fermentation. One is alcoholic fermentation and another is lactic acid fermentation. ATP is still produced from glucose but not as efficiently as with aerobic respiration. It produces only 2 ATP. So here you can say that glucose, pyruvic acid, no oxygen present in fermentation, ethanol or lactate is produced. First we will discuss about lactic acid fermentation. The overall equation is like that: glucose converts to 2-acid lactic plus 2 ATP. Bacteria produce yogurt and cheese. Or in muscle cell, during exercise, the oxygen in the muscle tissue is decreased to an extent that aerobic respiration does not occur at a sufficient rate. Hence, there is a buildup of lactic acid and your muscles get tired. Alcoholic fermentation, overall equation: glucose converts to 2-ethanol, 2-carbon dioxide plus 2 ATP. Yeast produce wine and beer and cause bread to rise for alcoholic fermentation. Wine making: grapes are crushed and the sugar they contain is fermented by yeast to produce alcohol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide usually escapes, but if the wine is bottled before fermentation is complete, the carbon dioxide dissolves and escapes as a bubble when the bottle is opened. This is the case with sparkling wines such as champagne. Different varieties of grape produce different type of wine. Baking. In baking, yeast is added to mixture of flour and water, made into the form of a dough. The yeast first changes the flour starch into sugar and then ferments the sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide forms bubbles in the dough which cause it to expand or rise. When the dough is baked, the heat evaporates the alcohol but makes the trapped bubble expand, giving the bread a light texture. Here we can see the holes in the bread are made by the carbon dioxide bubbles that gives the bread a light texture. Now, check it out. Here we can see a tree giving us oxygen, and we are using this oxygen, doing our respiration and exhaling carbon dioxide. Now look at the equation carefully. Here you can see glucose plus oxygen and carbon dioxide, water and energy is released. And if you see here the photosynthesis, these side products are on this side. Here is glucose, here is glucose, here is oxygen, here is oxygen. In the other side, the same thing. Carbon dioxide, here is carbon dioxide. Water, here is water. Here is energy, ATP, and here is light energy. So, but we can say that the respiration is just the opposite of photosynthesis. Now comparing photosynthesis and cellular respiration. First the process, then the reactant, then the product and the energy evolved. In photosynthesis, reactant is carbon dioxide and water, and in respiration the reactant is glucose and oxygen. In photosynthesis, product is glucose and oxygen. In cellular respiration, the product is carbon dioxide and water. In photosynthesis, input of radiant energy or sunlight, and in cellular respiration, release of chemical energy as ATP. Now we'll discuss about the differences between the respiration and the photosynthesis. So here is one side is aerobic respiration and the other side is photosynthesis. Aerobic respiration produces carbon dioxide and water, and in photosynthesis requires carbon dioxide and water. In aerobic respiration, energy is released, and in photosynthesis, energy is absorbed. In aerobic respiration, an oxidative process. Photosynthesis is a reductive process. Aerobic respiration happens a breaking down process, and photosynthesis is a synthetic process. Aerobic respiration occurs in all living cells at all times. Photosynthesis occurs only in green plants where light is available. Aerobic respiration occurs in mitochondria of a cell, and photosynthesis occurs in chloroplast of a leaf. Now, about the factors which are affecting respiration or the limiting fact. Kind of cell or tissue. Young and developing cells usually have higher respiration rate. Developing and ripening food and seeds too. Older cells and structural cells respire at lower rates. Temperature. Respiration generally has higher optimum and maximum temperature than PS or excess. Can have net dry matter loss at a high temperature where respiration exceeds. Temperature refers to temperature inside a plant or animal cell, not in air temperature. Using irrigation to help cool the plant can keep the plant in the net gain range. Oxygen. Low oxygen can reduce aerobic respiration and increase anaerobic respiration. ATP. Higher ATP reduces rate of respiration. This is called feedback inhibition, usually occurs when other metabolic processes have slowed or stopped. Now, carbon dioxide. Higher carbon dioxide levels reduce rate of respiration. Seldom occurs except when oxygen levels are limited, when flooded or compacted soils. Now about importance of respiration. Although food contains energy, it is not in a form that can be used by cell. Respiration changes the food energy into a form all cells can use. This energy drives the life processes of almost all organisms on Earth. It releases energy which is consumed in various metabolic processes essential for plant life. It brings about the formation of other necessary compounds participating as important cell constituents. It converts insoluble food into soluble form. It liberates carbon dioxide and play a part actively in maintaining the balance of carbon cycle. So we can say respiration provides energy needed by the cell and gives energy to the whole organism. During respiration, food energy is changed into a form that plant cells can use. Aerobic respiration returns carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to be used again in photosynthesis. Plants are known for the ability to convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. During germination, seeds use sugars and other molecules as a substrate for respiration. Important of aerobic respiration. Making bread, as we discussed before, in bread making the reaction of anaerobic respiration of sugar and yeast produces carbon dioxide. It is the pockets or bubbles of carbon dioxide gas that makes the bread light, soft and fluffy. The yeast breaks down the sugar by means of anaerobic respiration or fermentation to release carbon dioxide, ethanol and energy. Making alcoholic drinks. When making alcoholic drinks, we make use of the fact that the anaerobic respiration of sugar is produces alcohol or ethanol. For example, beer is made by means of anaerobic respiration or fermentation of hops, while wines of grapes or various fruits of any kind are made through fermentation. Anaerobic respiration of bacteria which forms lactic acid is used to make cheese, yogurt, and sour cream. The lactic acid gives these foods a characteristics of sour taste. So lactic acid fermentation occurs in animal cells when oxygen is not present. Lactic acid is produced as a byproduct of producing ATP without oxygen. So anaerobic respiration helps in rapid muscular movement when there is not sufficient oxygen in the muscle cells. Now we will observe a video showing difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration.
Your body requires energy to do all sorts of different things, such as muscle contractions, transmitting nerve impulses, growth, protein synthesis, active transport, maintaining a constant body temperature. And all of this is required in the form of a chemical called adenosine triphosphate, also known as ATP. This is provided by a process called respiration, and this happens inside of animal cells, as well as plant cells, in little organelles called the mitochondria. Glucose is provided by your food and oxygen is provided through breathing, and a whole series of complex chemical reactions take place, but the result is carbon dioxide and water are produced. In that process, energy is released. The word equation for this is dead simple. You just plug in those things that we've mentioned going into and out of the cell. Glucose plus oxygen goes to carbon dioxide and water. And this process is specifically known as aerobic respiration. Now, sometimes under some circumstances, this oxygen is not available in as ready supply as your cells need it. For example, imagine you're doing a sprint and your breathing rate will increase, so you'll be taking deeper breaths, but you're still not going to get as much oxygen as you necessarily need. If that oxygen is not there, these products are not going to be released. This process of aerobic respiration is not going to progress. The alternative is that in the absence of oxygen, glucose will be converted to lactic acid, and in the process, it will release a very small amount of energy. The word equation for this is, again, very simple. Glucose goes to lactic acid, and this process is known as anaerobic respiration. One problem associated with anaerobic respiration is something called oxygen debt. The lactic acid that's being produced is toxic and it must be broken down. This breakdown of lactic acid requires oxygen. And so, after you've done some exercise, you're going to have to repay that oxygen by breathing more deeply. So, you'll take deeper breaths even after you've finished this exercise. Let's look at the two compared side by side. we can obviously see that anaerobic respiration has the advantage that where aerobic respiration needs oxygen, anaerobic respiration can progress in its absence. But the trade-off is there's a very small release of energy by comparison, and while the products of aerobic respiration are easily released, for example, carbon dioxide is easily removed via the lungs, oxygen debt is required to break down lactic acid. And let's think about how you could get assessed on this in an exam. What is the word equation for aerobic respiration in plants? Now, this is a bit of a sneaky question because you might end up mixing up aerobic respiration and photosynthesis because it's specified plants. But what you need to realize is that aerobic respiration in plants is exactly the same as it is in animals. And so the answer is A. Glucose plus oxygen goes to carbon dioxide and water.
So now it's time to some pop quiz. Number 1. Plants use carbon dioxide dash and water and dash and the sun's energy to make food. So we'll have in the blank places carbon dioxide, water and chlorophyll. What type of cell has chloroplast? The answer is plant cell. Both plant and animal must break down food in order to get what? The answer is energy from it. How are respiration and photosynthesis related? Answer is they are the reverse or opposite of each other. Fermentation is a way to get energy when blank place is not available. The answer is oxygen. Now here's some exercise for you. First one is define respiration. Second, name the most common substrate used for respiration. Number 3, write the equation for aerobic respiration. Number 4, name 2 types of respiration. The same way I have said 30 questions for you and 16 questions for you. The last one is why is respiration called an embolic pathway? You will follow your textbook and today's class and try to answer these exercise questions, and after finishing your questions answering, you can check it with the answer I have given in the next slide. So the next slide is answer question and exercise question and answer. You can have the answers of the related questions I have given before. So these are the answers. These are the answers. You can compare these answers with your given answer. So these are the answer of all 16 questions I have written for you. So this is all for today. Hope today's class will help you to understand the chapter properly. Thank you very much. Stay home and stay safe.